Hey there, this is Eric from Caddy. Going to do a quick walkthrough of our demo brewery environment to give you a sense of what Caddy looks like both on the front end and on the back end. We're going to start in the back end. And the first question that most people ask is, where's all this data coming from? Well, data in the back end, things like inventory items, recipes, batch codes, things like that, are set up during your implementation period, or the data is actually coming through the front end of the application when your team members are receiving items, going to production and processing items or ingredients, or shipping out. On the screen in front of you, we have what's called the inventory dashboard. The inventory dashboard is where you'll be able to see each of your ingredients, each of your packaging materials, any batches that you might have on hand, and any finished products that you might have that are ready to go out. And then as you use, or as items or materials are processed, they will update automatically in Caddy so that you have real-time inventory information. Let's click into barley. I can see very quickly that I have 139,470 grams of barley on hand. I can see the different lot numbers that we have on hand. And if I needed to, I could click into any of those lots and see some more information, such as where that was supplied from, what facility it's sitting in, and what status it's in, which in this case is in stock and ready to be used. You might notice this usage graph over here, a way for me as an administrator over time to get a sense of where we're at. What does our barley usage look like over time, by week, by month, by quarter? And what does that trend look like? Should we have more on hand? Are we actually over ordering, etc.? And the idea is that we want our partners to make better decisions with their inventory data and protect their margins. The other thing I'll point towards is that you can set presets or thresholds for the amounts of any ingredient that you want to have on hand, whether it's a raw material, a packaging item, etc. And so you can see here, I actually have a low quantity alert that's been triggered for grain, pilsner, malt. And that, again, as an administrator, allows me to know that, hey, it's time to order that and get that in. I'm going to move on to what's called the traceability report. So one of the core tenets or pillars of what we sought out to build with Caddy was food traceability, the ability to trace ingredients front and backwards through the production process, what suppliers it came from, what partners or retailers or whomever that they may have gone to, and do that in a very quick manner. So what does that look like? Well, the traceability report is where you'll go to do any sort of mock recall, audit, or pull any traceability records. So it's really simple. I'm going to go ahead and click create report. Maybe I had a complaint on a specific item. So I can go ahead, do a report on an item number, and maybe it was a raw material, and perhaps it was on this particular grain. I do have a lot code. In this case, I know it was D0192. I can go ahead and hit the create report button. So in this case, I can see that I still have some of this particular lot number in stock. See how much, when it was created, the best before date, and I can download this information if I need to, as well as I can see the logs for receiving of this item. If I go back, and I can also see now that, hey, this particular item, this particular grain, has actually been produced in this particular batch, and how much of that batch exists, where is it located, and what the creation and best before dates are for that particular batch. So this is blonde 1, perhaps it's a batch that's sitting in a tank, and this I can see has a list of other ingredients as well that are also included, plus their lot codes, plus their quantities, again, the facility, the batch code. The next thing I'll show you is Form Finder. Form Finder is very similar to the traceability report, except it's for any digital records that you've processed or continue to process through Caddy. So one example is, let's say I wanted to pull all the records that have been processed between June 1st and today. I can very quickly see the sort of high-level information, what type of form it was, what type of inventory item is associated with, any codes or lot codes or batch codes, as well as which facility and which production or which team member is involved. Again, if I needed to go into any one of these, I can quickly click in, I can hit download, and as you can see here, you can see all the associated ingredients, lot numbers, quantities, etc. This is to make your information pulling and gathering much quicker, much more nimble, In the case of an audit, yes, of course, but also in the case of, a manager needing to find information on any given day. These are the types of things that we're trying to solve for by moving off of pen and paper and moving towards a really easy to use, intuitive tool like Caddy. Manage forms is where I would configure forms. So as part of implementation, typically we sit down with our partners, we configure their forms, but it's very easy as a user, in this case, to make configuration, to go in here, start creating a form, assign it to specific facilities or specific users, identify whether it's sort of a standard operational form or whether it needs to be part of our traceability reporting, give it a name, and start adding elements, whether it's temperature, whether it's quantity, a checkbox that someone needs to check. Additionally, I can configure required fields versus optional fields. And you can see here, I'll go into this QA check. I can see, okay, beer filtered, what type of field is it? Checkbox, number, temperature, whatever, drop down, etc. And then I can see any other fields here, and it's very easy to also sort them up and down, which is something that anyone can do, assuming they have the permissions. But in terms of difficulty, it's very, very simple, very easy and straightforward. Customers, suppliers, and presets, these are all things that we will help you as part of implementation. But the idea is that we're putting these records into your Caddy system as values or fields or names that you're going to go to often. Your staff working with the front-end application will have no confusion over LCBO. Some people might write LCBO with a dot in between each letter. Some people might write LCBO lowercase. We've seen, LCBO with a dash in between the letters, things like that. And so setting up these presets, making it super simple for you to manage each of these records and dig in if you need to, does away with sort of that manual entry or that duplication. Similar idea for suppliers. I can see any orders, any notes that I might need to have, any documents. I can also request documents. So this is a relatively new feature where if you needed, let's say, a certain document from your contact at your supply store, maybe it's a passive certification, you can actually request that, hit send, and then the Caddy backend will actually follow up with that contact until you get that document. There's a few other things here that maybe are less critical to what you're seeing, what is sort of important for the backend. But I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to move to the front-end application, and we'll show you a bit of what receiving and processing and multi-step processing and even shipping looks like with Caddy. Hey, we're back, and now we're going to go into the front end of the Caddy application. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Caddy app. In this case, I'm using an iPad, but the Caddy mobile application, or the front-end application, if you will, is compatible on both Android and iOS devices. So sometimes people use a tablet like I'm using, or they might even use their phones if phones are allowed on the production floor. What you see in front of you is a list of form options that are available to me as a user. Now, an administrator can actually isolate and only show me the forms that I need to see. You might, for example, have folks on your team that do receiving and shipping. And so as an administrator, I can make it so that Eric, in this case, only sees receiving and shipping forms. For the sake of this demonstration, obviously, you can have access to everything, but I'm actually going to pick a couple of these forms, walk through some of these steps, and show you what it's like to actually use the application. So why don't we get started with receiving? Now, when I click on receiving, I actually have two options, expected deliveries and unexpected deliveries. Expected deliveries might be something like every Thursday we get a shipment from Joe's Beer Supply of a certain ingredient at a certain quantity for a certain price, perhaps. And so I could click expected delivery, have all that predetermined data already presented to me. In this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and use an unexpected delivery so I can show you some of the steps that folks will have to see and go through. I'm going to click on unexpected delivery, and in this case, perhaps we're receiving some yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and click on yeast. And I'll see a list of suppliers that have been identified as suppliers for yeast for our particular brewery. In this case, I see Beer Supply Store. So I don't have any other options. There is an other there if I had to, but in this case, this is coming from Beer Supply Store. I'm going to go ahead and click that. The carrier might change from time to time as well. Again, these are presets that are available in the administrator backend. Big Trucks Inc. is the company that happens to be the carrier in this particular order. Very easy. I just click on Big Trucks Inc. and I don't have any questions about, oh, was it Big Trucks, Big Trucks Incorporated, or some other name that you might see on different forms. Lot numbers. So oftentimes we see lot numbers might be expensive, they might be complicated or long characters. In this case, we're going to use our tablet or our phone to capture the lot code. Very quickly take a picture. We'll use this picture here. Isolate there. And I can see that the application has grabbed those characters neatly and properly without any errors, making sure that I'm not doing any manual entry, potentially leading to manual errors. It's very easy for an M to look like an N or a 7 to look like a 1, things like that. You can go ahead and click next, or just get to fill in the units. So perhaps it's a dozen units and the best by date. So let's say it's a year from now. Great. If I needed to, I can, again, take any supplementary photos or information outside of the lot code. So let's go ahead and take this DOA. Again, this is just a random picture. I could use whatever, but perhaps I want to take a picture of the condition of the truck or the box or the packaging and have that all available to us in the future if need be. So you can see here, I have a little mini checklist I can go through very quickly. And I'm trying to submit here at the bottom, but the application's not letting me, which is great. That means that I have not completed the form. And so again, what we're doing is putting up guardrails to eliminate data entry errors, manual entry errors, and incomplete data. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that, yes, that is the correct carrier. Whether I want to flag for hold or flag for review, I don't have to at this point. I'm going to go ahead and click submit, and I'm done. So now the raw ingredients in the back end have increased, and that particular lot has been recorded from that particular carrier on this particular day by me as that particular staff member. Now, what does it look like if we want to go into production? I'm going to click on production. And in this case, perhaps I'm making a batch of blonde 1. Now, I know that blonde 1 goes into blonde 2 and what is our multi-step processing. So if I need to, I can go to blonde 1, create a certain number of batches. And I can see actually that I actually don't have enough grain on hand to create this particular batch for this particular item. Now, if I did have enough, it would pull from what you can see here on the grain wheat malt and the grain dextrin malt side from suggested lot numbers. What Caddy is doing is pulling from the lot closest to expiry, whether it's FIFO or FIFO principles, based on what I've identified on the back end as an administrator. Let's go back. So what happens if we try to create some blonde 2? Let's try and create one batch. And great. I actually, in this case, have enough blonde 1 on hand, and enough yeast to create this second step in our blonde ale, let's say. So you can see there's a batch code, which looks good. There's a total quantity, which is 3,000 liters. The best before date looks good. The blonde 1 and the yeast are all pulling from the correct lots. And if I really, really needed to, I could click in on the pencil and see any other lots that might be available to me. In this case, I only have one lot of blonde 1, but if I had others, I could, if I needed to, make a pivot and change what lot is being pulled from. Again, I can flag for hold or flag for review. Perhaps I am new to the job, and every time I am going into production, I need to have my manager review. So I can actually go ahead and click flag for hold. I can leave some comments here. So perhaps I might say, first day on the job, period, need someone to review, please, period. Okay, and hit submit. And now I've submitted that form. What you'll see now is this operation console where a little red notification has popped up. And now I am both a staff member in this case and an administrator, hence why I'm seeing this notification on the operation console. So I'm going to go ahead and click on operation console. This is where I can see actually an overview of all the submissions, all the forms that have come through Caddy on this particular day. Let's actually take note of actions on the top right, which has, again, that little red icon that notifies me my attention is needed. You could see activity if you really wanted to. So you could go through and see other forms that have been submitted on previous days. You could view them if you wanted to. And you can click on actions. So on actions here, I could see that a blonde 2 production form was submitted and has been put on hold. So let's investigate a little bit further. Well, I can see here the information. It was logged by Eric. The quantity looks right. Facility information looks right. Log codes look okay. And if I needed to, I could go do a manual check or an in-person check if I had to. But I'm pretty confident in what Eric's doing, so I'm going to go ahead and release that. Now my operation console is clear. That particular form has been processed and uploaded through the Caddy system, and they can go ahead and work on that batch. The other forms look really similar. It's a very similar process where, again, I can flag for hold, I can flag for review, and I'm always using presets. So again, if I'm shipping something out, let's say we're shipping out this blonde keg, I want to ship out 1 unit. Who am I shipping to? Of course, needs to be identified. Who am I shipping through? Needs to be identified. And then again, I have my checklist in front of me to eliminate any data entry errors, incomplete information, and make sure that I'm capturing complete and accurate data. Same idea. Again, you can take pictures if you need to and do those checks. Let's go ahead and send that through and submit. Boom. Now, we've done a few things today. If I were to go into the Caddy backend, I would see that not only did we receive some ingredients today, but we also produced a batch of Blonde 2, and we shipped out some finished products to the LCBO. That concludes our demonstration of the Caddy front end and back end. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.